Hi there. Over the past few weeks, we've been talking about boundaries, how to establish boundaries, how to maintain boundaries, how to maintain your space, whether it's mental, emotional, physical, or spiritual. Well, today I'm going to share with you how to stop being a pushover and create strong boundaries that people just keep wanting to ignore. I'm also going to share a resource, and we're going to get to it in just one moment. Hi there, and welcome to Stress Talk Live. This is the place where we help women over 40 to live healthier lives through strategic stress management, solution focused self care, and grateful living. I'm your host, Marcyline Bailey. Yeah, we've been talking about boundaries, haven't we? We've been talking about them a lot over the last few weeks. And today, I wanted to just take a few moments of your time to talk about how to stop letting people cross that boundary. I keep thinking about picket fences. If you saw the announcement, I was standing by a picket fence. And so, yeah, we talked about types of boundaries, didn't we? And I described them as fences. Picket fence being a type of boundary that doesn't really do much, it's just for decoration. But also, I talked about privacy fences where you can't see in and you can't see out unless you're like on your tippy toes or on a ladder looking over that fence. Well, today we're going to talk about how to stop people from really. Let me change that. I was going to say we're going to talk about how to stop people from going over the boundary. We're going to talk about how you can stop losing your peace over people who ignore your boundary. How about that? First and foremost, as always, I'd like to ask you to like, follow, and subscribe to ML Bailey Consultants. You can find me on Instagram, Facebook, as well as YouTube. Also, share with some friends. Share this with some people that you think might benefit from having some strategic ways to handle their stress, as well as ways in which they can live with gratitude and gratefulness. Also, go to TapLink. This is where I put resources for you. You will find the Ultimate Stress Busting Guide, a link to that where you can look at it and see if it's something that might be helpful. I think it is. Also, the resource that I'm going to talk about today is there's a link for that particular resource as well on this TapLink link. So make sure you go there to check it out. Last but not least, this is my website, mlbaileyconsultants.com. Find out more information about me. All right, what are we talking about today? We are talking about how to stop being a pushover. Create strong boundaries that no one ignores. Yeah, stop being a pushover. Stop letting people run over you. Stop people from crossing that boundary. That's what we're going to talk about. Okay? All right. As always, please drop your comments or questions in the comment section, and I will try to answer them as they come up. Okay, so I wanted to share with you a couple of things, and we'll talk about them in more detail. But this is really kind of excuse me. This is really an important topic because so often we set boundaries and people will constantly ignore them. And that leaves us with, um, that leaves us having to deal with the consequences of that. And how do we do that, especially when someone continues to violate the boundary that has been established? Well, we're going to talk about some steps that you can take, also some prep work that you can do. The resource that I want to share with you today is where I got these ideas. And this resource is available to you as well. The resource is the Better Boundaries Workbook by Sharon Martin. She is a licensed clinical social worker. She actually has her doctorate in social work now. She was a master level social worker when she developed this workbook. But what I'm sharing with you is taken from that workbook. I'm just sharing some of the highlights of it, but also sharing with you some of the powerful information and empowering information that she has included in this workbook. So let's talk about let's go to the first thing that is really vital when we're wanting to establish boundaries. Okay. First of all, want to know the violator. Who is that? Who is that person? Who is that person who keeps violating the boundary that you've established? One of the things that we want to do is kind of profile them. If you watch if you watch cop shows, I'm not a big fan of cop shows, but my husband is a big fan of cop shows, and so sometimes I'll get in on some of the shows that he's watching. Those cop shows, they're always profiling somebody, right? They're always talking about the characteristics. They're talking about the patterns and the habits that they see in that person. That's something that I would suggest that you start doing, especially, thank you for the heart, especially when it comes to establishing boundaries. Who is that person who keeps overstepping the bounds that you've established? And this is one of the suggestions that you'll find in the Better Boundaries workbook as well. But who is that person? And you want to ask not just who that person is by knowing that person's name, or, how you interact with them, the environment in which you interact with them. You want to also ask yourself these questions. Is it about power? Is there a power differential that causes this person to ignore the boundaries that you've set, that encourages this person to say that they don't have to, that they don't have they don't have to go by what you said? So is it about power? That's something that you want to just keep in mind. We have those power differentials in where work situations, in the work environment. We also have power differentials when it comes to age, like someone who is a senior as opposed to someone who is much younger. There's a power differential when it comes to titles, occupation, such as police officers, right? So we want to know what that, if we want to make sure that we're aware of any power differentials, because that's going to help us to determine or to decide what it is we need or want to do. Another question that we want to consider is this person someone who's open to changing? Is this person someone who is going to change how they approach you, how they interact with you, how they deal with you? Or is it a person who's just set in their ways? Or because of, again, their title, their profession, the power differential that they see, is it that they just feel like they don't have to, right? Another thing that you want to consider is how long has this been going on? Remember, we talked about habits and how habits are so hard to change because a lot of times it's automatic. When it's a habit, it's something that we do without thinking about it. So, how long has this been going on? Is it something new? Is it something that has been going on for an extended period of time? So, that's also something you want to consider. Another consideration is what type of violation is it? Is it physical, where the person is putting hands on you? Is it verbal, where they're verbally speaking to you in a way that is not appropriate or that in a way that makes you uncomfortable? Or is it another type? Is it about your personal space? Is it about your privacy? What type is it? And you want to, again, think about these questions as you're profiling the person who continues to violate those boundaries. Another thing that you want to consider when we're talking about profiling this individual or individuals, have you made the boundary clear and have you consistently communicated it? These are things that I've also shared with you in previous streams, right? That we have to be clear about the boundary and we have to be make sure that we've communicated it in a clear and concise way. Because if we are ambivalent about what we're saying, if we are wishy washy in some way, giving mixed signals or mixed messages, then that doesn't help us if we want to establish a boundary that's similar to a privacy fence. Anytime we're setting a boundary and it's kind of wishy washy or we're ambivalent in our communication, that's more like a picket fence, right? So we want to make sure that we have clearly, consistently, as well as concisely communicated the boundary so that the person who continues to violate it is very clear and knows that what they're doing. Okay. Any questions? Any comments? Okay, so we've just talked about knowing the violator, who keeps violating the boundary. And I suggested just profiling them, doing a profile, profiling them. Is it about power? Are they open to change? How long has it been going on? What type of violation is it? And then have you clearly, concisely, and constantly communicated the boundary so that they are well aware of your expectations? So now that we've talked about knowing the violator, let's talk about the actions that we need to take. Okay. And again, this is information that I have learned from the Better Boundaries Workbook by Sharon Martin, who is a colleague, LCSW, licensed clinical social worker. And if you are interested in this particular work, you can go to the tap link. Remember, I had the tap link. Just go to this link and you'll find it there because it is posted on the tap link. Okay, so let's talk about the actions that you can take. First and foremost, repetition, repetition, repetition. Repeat, 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 repeat. You know that old joke? There's an old joke that says, Pete and repeat were in the plane. Pete jumped out. Who was left? Repeat. Pete and repeat were in a plane. Pete jumped out. Who was left? Repeat. Pete, you get the idea, right? Repeat. Repetition is key. I talked about using I statements to clearly and concisely communicate your expectations. You want to make sure that when you are expressing your boundary, that you use language that is very clear, that is concise, and just use it repeatedly. Just say the same thing over and over again. Just say the same thing so that there are no questions, there's no confusion, it's very clear. Another thing that you can do is keep track of the violations, and this will help you look at the what, when, who, and how. What happened? When did it happen? Who was involved? How did it happen? Keep track of all of that, because once you know that, what, when, who, and how, then you can analyze it. Analyze it for really what it is. How did this happen? How did I end up in a room with this person again? How did I end up in the staff room with this person by myself, right? So keep track of these, keep track of what happens, when it happens, who was involved, and how it happened. And then analyze it to see if there are things that you can do or ways in which you can get support so that you are not alone in trying to maintain a boundary, especially when it comes to someone who insists on violating that boundary. And then once you keep track, you've looked at it, you've analyzed the situations, make adjustments as needed. Just make adjustments. You may need to change your patterns, your habits. You also may need to, as I said before, enlist help. So the actions to take, I've talked about repetition. I've talked about keeping track of the violations. Now, being very clear. I keep saying that. I keep saying, be very clear. Be very clear about how you want to be treated. And if it's difficult for you to express it, write it down first. You don't have to give a long drawn out explanation to anyone. Just write it down. Practice it. And then say it. Practice it in the mirror. Read it, practice it in the mirror. But you want what you're saying to be very short. You don't want a long paragraph, right? You can just use your I statement, which is very brief. Very brief. So be very clear. The other thing is, although you can do all of those things, you can repeat the message, you can keep track of the violations, you can profile the person or the persons who continue to violate the boundaries that you've set. You also need to know that some people will never respect the boundaries that you've established, and they may not respect them. They may not respect them primarily because of power, as we've said before, their desire for control. They want to control you, they want to control the situation, or because of their own insecurities. So knowing this, knowing that some will never respect your boundary, can be very freeing in itself as well. And so what do you do when you have a person who will not, no matter what you do, will not respect the boundary? Then you want to change the narrative. You want to shift and take your power back. What does that mean? It could mean a couple of things. According to Sharon Martin in the workbook, You can change how you respond. Sometimes we get so flustered when people do something, they've crossed the boundary and we get flustered. Change it. Don't be flustered. Stand on your 2 feet, have your big girl pants on, your big boy pants on, your boots on the ground, and you tell them how it is. I don't want you to touch me. That's it. Boom. Right? Or I don't like when you talk to me that way. I want you to speak to me in a respectful manner. Boom. That's it. So change how you respond. If you get angry when there is a violation, change that too. Just brush it off. Ignore it. Just go on. Because if someone is violating a boundary because they want you to get angry, they want to see some emotions, not exhibiting emotions can be the exact thing that can turn things around. So change how you respond. Another way to shift the power back to you is just detach. Just detach from it. You don't have to have emotions. We do get emotional about these things, but you don't have to. It's something that I teach my clients. Look at it for what it is and take the emotion out of it. If you can take the emotion out of it, you can look at the situation objectively. You also can think more clearly. So just detach. Another thing that you can do if someone refuses to respect the boundaries that you've established, let it and let them go. We're seeing that a lot now, right? We're seeing that a lot in families. We're seeing that a lot in friendships because of the political climate. People aren't able to talk to each other, and people are not respectful of boundaries that have been set. And it's happening in families, it's happening in friendships, and people are walking away. I'm saddened by that. I'm saddened by that. I think that we should be able to have a discourse, a conversation about what's going on today. But unfortunately, some people aren't able to. And it's not just about the conversations, it's about the manner and it's about a whole bunch of things, which we're not going to talk about here. The thing is, people are walking away. Sometimes you have to just let it go and let that person go. You make sure that you're just not around that person. You don't come in contact with that person. You don't see that person. You don't read anything on Facebook about that person. You block them, whatever you do, whatever you need to do, you let it and let them go, especially if they are violating boundaries that cause you to be in pain. So we have just talked about how to stop being a pushover and create strong boundaries no one ignores. And this information is coming from the Better Boundaries Workbook by Sharon Martin, a colleague. And if you're interested, you can go to this particular link, or you can always go to the tap link right here that has the link to this workbook. I think it's a helpful, it'll be very helpful for you to add to your library of self-help if you're looking for ways to deal with people who break the boundaries that you set. We talked about knowing the violator, as in profiling the violator. Profile that person or the persons who continuously violate the boundaries that you've set. Also, make sure that you've communicated that boundary in a clear, concise, and consistent manner. We also talked about actions that you can take. Repetition, repetition, repetition. I told you that old, probably tired joke, Pete and repeat, were in a plane. Pete jumped out. Who was left? Repeat. I'm saying that because repetition, repetition, repetition is very key. It's very important. And if you remember that joke, you'll remember repetition, repetition, repetition. Also suggested that you keep track of the violations so that you can analyze what happens, when it happens, where it happens, who's involved, how it happens, so that you can make adjustments as needed. I repeated, there's that word again. I repeated being very clear about the boundary so that the other person knows exactly what they're doing. Also shared that sometimes people will not, or they're just not going to respect your boundary. And knowing that enables you to shift the power back to yourself by changing how you respond and or detaching from the situation as well. And then finally, if nothing else works, you've tried what you can. You can always just let it and let them go. Whew, well, that's all for now. I'm so glad that you joined me today. I appreciate you all so very much. Mr. Clark, thank you again for that heart. I appreciate it. I hope that you all have a wonderful, wonderful evening, and I'll see you next time. As always, take good care.